One of my neighbors was kidnapped yesterday. Sometimes I speak in metaphor. This isn't that. A local father and husband who lives very close to me was stolen from his family and our community. If it's too much to listen to the rest of this, I understand. Just know this is also a fundraising request for his family. Link in description. His wife of 20 years, who's never spent a day away from him, is sobbing as she makes food and tends their children, wakes up alone, makes coffee without him. I know because as I'm writing this, I'm sitting in her kitchen listening to her. This man was here completely legally, specifically under temporary protected status. It happened like this. His nephew was pulled over for driving 8 miles an hour over the speed limit in a 55 zone, which is to say he was pulled over for driving while brown in Maine. He was on a valid out-of-state license and didn't know that he had to transfer his license within 30 days, which was over. If he'd been white, he wouldn't have been pulled over for doing 63 in a 55, and they would have just told him to go on his way and update his license when he got a chance, but he's Latino. So they gave him a $450 ticket and told him he had to find someone else to drive the car home. He called his uncle, who happily came out, displayed his legal Maine license to the cops. Purely because he speaks Spanish. The cops demanded his papers. They took pictures of everyone on their personal phones, informed dispatch, and dispatch called Border Patrol, who came and kidnapped both the uncle and the guy who was driving's wife. They released the guy who was driving's wife alone at 1 a.m. in the middle of the woods, 2.5 hours north of her home and family. This is a beautiful young woman in her early 20s who speaks no English, thrown into the north woods alone at night with no idea where she is. They kept the uncle. ICE refused to tell anyone where he was, denied he was in custody for hours, and his son was calling repeatedly and asking, and they said, nope, nobody here. Finally, he was able to call his family, tell him he'd been in custody all along. Now, his family is terrified to go outside and terrified to be at home. This is a legal resident of the U.S. here with proper documentation, kidnapped by a secret police force and taken to an undisclosed location. His family is left without their beloved husband, father, and uncle, and without their primary breadwinner. I wish you could see his wife sobbing and screaming, talking about how in 20 years they've never spent a day apart, how she can't eat because of how horrifying the not knowing is, not knowing where he is, what's being done to him, what their family will do if he's kept in some black site forever, deported to a labor camp in some country he's never been to, how she's terrified to speak about it at all publicly because she fears blowback against her children and family. This is happening to my neighbors in a town of 1,200 people in rural Maine, and most of my neighbors have no idea because the family is too terrified to talk about it. This is happening to your neighbors. People are being disappeared. Families of legal immigrants are being torn apart as we speak. The level of grief and anger that I'm navigating is pretty high. I feel physically sick to my stomach with it. I feel an itch towards action, increasing every day like a constant physical pull. I work hard to balance that with the knowledge that my programming as a white guy makes me one of the worst people to decide tactics and strategies. I have the most internalized glorification of violence and heroics, and I'm at the least risk of suffering blowback. So I follow the leadership of impacted communities as best as I can, and I feel physically ill. One thing I can do is use my platform to try and support my literal neighbors who are now in a horrifying situation. Every part of this is going to cost them financially in ways that are hard to describe. They may never see their husband and father and uncle again. They may have to flee. They're absolutely in for a legal battle which will cost thousands and thousands of dollars in a system that is completely stacked against them. And they still need to make rent and eat in this economy, now without their primary breadwinner, under escalating threat of being kidnapped themselves. So I'm asking you to consider your position relative to theirs right now and chip in what you can to the fundraiser below. Imagine being that mother, waking up tomorrow with your 2 children and your husband gone, maybe forever. It took them days to decide it was worth it, the risk, for me to make this video, and I hope you can make that risk worth it for them. Every penny put toward this will go straight to a family who desperately needs it, 5 miles down the road from me. And if you don't know anyone who's been kidnapped in your community, then you're not close enough. Especially if you look like me, I need you to get involved. Learn Spanish. Get connected to rapid response groups in your area. Take active bystander trainings. Learn legal rights and advocacy. People need help. Sometimes it'll be big and dramatic, but mostly it'll be small and mundane. I spent all day yesterday at the Department of Motor Vehicles with that family, helping get their papers in order. And as a white guy with local privilege and fluent local English, I was able to navigate that system in a way that helped them get documentation. The grumpy old white lady at the DMV thinks I look like her son, while the terrified brown person with disorganized papers who doesn't speak her language looks like a threat. That's one little way I can help support them. They're terrified to go into stores right now, and they should be. ICE is stalking out Walmart, stalking schools, stalking gas stations. So get involved. Now, please. Build trust. Get to the point where people can turn to you. I know a lot of you would be happy to go to the DMV with folks, but if they don't know you well enough to trust you when their whole world turns upside down and they're terrified, it's completely meaningless. The line of who is considered legal in this country is being moved very quickly, and you and people you love will be on the other side of it soon. If you are an ethical person, they are coming for you. And allowing more at-risk people to be disappeared is watching your allies be kidnapped and thinking it has nothing to do with you. Join local grassroots organizations like PSL or unions or whatever ethical local group you can find. If you're white, join or start local rapid response teams. Stop talking about organizing and start acting with mutual aid locally. And I hope that the least we can do, the very least, is blow this fundraiser up. So please share, please distribute, please chip in a few bucks so that this family who's going through hell can have a little bit of stuff they don't have to worry about right now.